Welcome to a rainy Belgrade, Serbia, and welcome to a war in the shadows. We're on the trail of hundreds of millions of dollars and euro in foreign cash and aid that's getting pumped into this country and many other countries around the world. Now, there's a big protest here. It just so happens we've landed right in the middle of the biggest protest here in decades. But we're not that interested on which side of the argument the coin drops down onto. What we're interested in is the money. Where's it coming from? Where's it going? And how is it influencing the rights of ordinary Serbs to make decisions under their own flags? Let's go.
It's hardly surprising that Serbia has become a hotbed for hundreds of foreign NGOs. It's surrounded by EU states that, let's face it, don't share Serbia's traditional view of the world. It's a small country of 6 million people and it's being flooded with cash and influence from abroad. Among the largest and best known NGO groups here in Serbia are the Civic Initiative, the Youth Initiative for Human Rights, the YIHR, the Centre for Research, Transparency and Accountability, the CRTA, and let's not forget the Crime and Corruption Reporting Network, or CRIC, who we'll meet later on. Now, according to our sources and investigations, these organisations are the top recipients of Western funding here, including from infamous organisations like USAID and the NED, the National Endowment for Democracy, as well as funds from Great Britain and individual EU countries via their embassies. And let's never forget the philanthropic billionaires, and they're not missing out either, with Soros and Rockefeller getting in on the act. All these groups use any opportunity to jump on a political bandwagon and promote their globalist view of the world. Now, we sat down with Serbian Deputy Prime Minister Aleksandar Vulin and asked him just how big a problem NGOs have become.
Just some of the numbers. In 2025 alone, over $15 million is coming from the United States. We know that since 2020, 150 billion euros has been spent by the EU on what they call in-country influence media society. You've got the Soros Foundation. We've got over 200 British NGOs operating in Serbia. And some of them are churches, some of them are evangelistic missionaries. And Serbia isn't Africa. Serbia is a well-established ancient civilization, an Orthodox country. What's going on? Why is the EU, the Americans, and various other, let's say, societal influencers so interested in Serbia, in your view?
You know, we are not a very big country, as you know. It's only 6 million of us, you know, and there is absolutely no logical explanation why they're pouring that kind of money in Serbia and why they're so eager to change the government in Serbia. They can do it on some other way, but no. We are, you know, Serbs are kind of strange nation, because, you know, we occupied much bigger map in historical means than on geographical map, you know. Serbs are important, but why we are so important right now? Exactly why right now? Because of Russia. If you want to make government who will impose sanctions on Russia, who will make a big quarrel with Russia, you must change us. You know, during our entire history, West always insists that we must be in some kind of quarrel with Russia, and that our quarrel must be final, must be last, you know. And for 1,000 years, we never do that. Never. Not even during the occupation of Serbia. We have some kind of puppet state, collaborationist regime, controlled by Germans, but not even they not sent not even one Serbian soldier against the Soviet army. Not even one. So imagine, in that time we do not do that, and do you expect of us that we do that now?
Strangely enough, when we tried to talk to protesters, mostly students and high school kids, they'd immediately ask us to cut the cameras. It also became very clear to us that the protesters were not exactly sure why they were protesting in the first place. There was a carnival atmosphere, and there was also a sense that everyone wanted to be there just because it was happening. There was no specific changes they wanted to see. Sometimes we even saw what can only be described as handlers coming by to tell them not to talk to the press. Corruption, you say?
Yeah, and everything else. You should ask somebody else. I'm sorry. We don't want to be recorded.
But why is everybody so scared to talk about it? If there's corruption, and you're like, every time we see students with signs, nobody will tell us why they're protesting.
We just don't want to be recorded, that's all.
It's all written on the Instagram page of students.
I don't want to talk. I can't talk. I don't know who's writing the Instagram page.
Maybe you should ask students in Yellow West because they're the most informed ones.
But you're informed. You're students. You're holding the signs. I mean, why can't you guys tell me what the problem is? This is, huh?
Camera. We don't want to really want to be recorded.
But you're walking around the streets holding a big sign, and you don't want to be on a camera.
Yeah.
But what?
It's hard to put in words. We know what we're protesting for, but we don't want to be recorded, okay?
Okay. Thanks. So, again, nobody wants to talk about it. That's like the third group that have told us that they don't want to talk about it, but they're happy to walk around the streets with a big sign, but they don't want to talk about why they've got the sign.
So here we are in Belgrade, rainy day, bit chilly, and if you're interested in covering up, plenty of clothes shops here for the old ladies of Belgrade, but you got to ask, what else is getting covered up here? There's an NGO called CRIC, very powerful. They've been involved in some of the biggest investigations into so-called corruption here in Belgrade. But it turns out this is their address. That's right. But there's nothing here to suggest that they're actually here. This is definitely their address. We've checked it out. We've tried to contact them and get them to talk to us. But guess what? They don't want to talk to us at all. You got to ask yourself how a NGO, which is getting millions and millions of dollars and euros from the EU, from the United States, funded by the National Endowment for Democracy, USAID, of course. They're getting the cash to fight corruption. We all know how corruption has gone with, USAID. And this isn't the only one. There are hundreds of NGOs here in Serbia working to improve Serbian society by flushing millions of dollars in to basically undermine the democratically elected government. Now, you don't have to agree with them or disagree with them. This is about allowing Serbians to make their own decisions in their own country under their own flag. But these guys are very, very eager to make sure nobody knows what they're about, where they are, or even where they're living. Interesting stuff.
So it's become absolutely obvious to us that Serbia has become the target of a huge multinational operation to flush cash and influence into this small Balkan state. Now remember, you may think that because USAID has had its doors closed that the money's going to stop running in. That's not the case. The US Department of State, National Endowment for Democracy, many other organizations, some you've never heard of, are still working feverishly to influence Serbian democracy. We did our best to decipher it. Let's have a look. Its primary operators are the Centre for Research, Transparency and Accountability, CRTA, and the Independent Journalists Association of Serbia, IJAS, as well as the Belgrade Open School. Let's have a look at the CRTA. Aside from USAID, it's also getting support from UK aid. Bet you hadn't heard of that one before. Now there's also groups like the European Endowment for Democracy, embassies of Germany, Switzerland, Netherlands, France, and even the Czech Republic are getting involved. On top of all this, there are foundations involved in the game, like the Rockefeller Brothers Fund and our friends, of course, at the Open Society. Just to name a few, among the more shadowy players are some groups we've never even heard about before, but they've been active for a long time, like the Hansard Society, formed in the United Kingdom in 1944 to promote parliamentary democracy. As in the case with the European Endowment for Democracy or Open Society, these organizations fund several Serbian NGOs simultaneously, getting involved not just with the CRTA, but with the Independent Journalists Association and other groups. Now this creates an ecosystem ecosystem of groups and influence that constantly support each other. It's basically like a hydra. You kill one source of income and 3 more spring up in its place. And that's why, remarkably, it's actually impossible, even for the elected government, to say for sure just how much money has been really poured into their country. But what we do know for sure is the following. Let's look at US aid since 2001. The United States has provided nearly $1.2 billion for the implementation and maintenance of various projects in Serbia. In 2022, the EU provided grants totaling €1.5 million in that year. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. On the list are also philanthropic donations, and they amounted to €33.3 million. We get this, 4,557 recorded donations. And the government of Serbia is still trying to investigate exactly what that money was used for and where it really ended up.
One NGO daily spent around 2 million dinars, it's around 20,000 euros, just on taxi driving. Nothing more. Daily, they were, where they drive themselves, to Paris and back, to Moscow and back, 2 million dinars daily. What they do? They just make that false ticket, whatever. Guy took the money, give them cash, took some small part for themselves, and when you have that kind of cash, you can spend it and you can distribute.
And influence.
Of course, and you buy it. And how they do it? They have some project. And project is about position of LGBTQ plus, minus, and whatever, for instance, in factories. So, where you have LGBTQ plus, minus in factory, there is no such a thing, of course. But they said, we investigate about it, we think about it, and of course, you must pay for marketing for that. Yeah, people should know that thing happened. That's how they do it. They took the money, they give to the media, not about LGBTQ, not about that they, political leaders, have open space to speak about anything. And of course, with that kind of money, you said, okay, we need some investigator on the field. And you have 10, 15, 100, who knows, so-called investigator, you pay them, and they are on protest.
Now, the UK has become one of the most aggressively involved states here in Serbia when it comes to funding NGOs and societal influence operations. There's around 210 British NGOs operating here, and they fund very strange activities like butterfly conservation and the European Consortium for Political Research, whatever that's supposed to do. They also operate NGOs in a further 188 countries, altogether costing the ordinary UK taxpayer hundreds of millions a year. Now, notably, among these British NGOs, there's also many churches, Christian churches, and that surprised us, given that Serbia is a 1,000-year-old traditional Christian Orthodox country. Why does the UK government want to flush cash into Serbia to convert Christians to Christianity?
As you said, Great Britain, evangelistic church or something like that, in Orthodox country, one of the oldest Orthodox countries in Europe. So yes, one time I have a meeting with the Minister of Defense of Great Britain, just right after Brexit, and he told me, we leave the Europe, but we will not leave the Balkan, and that's it. They are here. Mm-hmm. Brit are here. Brit are in Sarajevo, Brit are in Serbia. And everything that happened in the, I call, Serbian world, that's mean Serbia, Republic of Serbia, and Republic of Srpska, it's always made partly or partially or in major by British.
Of course, it wouldn't have been fair if we hadn't contacted these NGOs directly. Well, we did knock on their doors, so we decided to try and call them. But unsurprisingly, they didn't seem to want to talk to us at all. In fact, they didn't even want to pick up the phone.
So this is Crick in Belgrade. It's business hours. And this is the third time I've tried to contact them. And you can see that's their published number. But Crick doesn't want to talk to me or anybody else, it seems. Maybe since USA cut the cash, they haven't been able to pay the phone bill. There we go, cut off. So this is the CRTA. And the time in Serbia, in Belgrade, where they say they're based, is 2:47 in the afternoon. And again, this is the third time I've made this call to CRTA. And this is the published number on their website. Now remember, we went to visit them as well. But yet again, nobody seems to want to answer the phone to answer our questions about where they get their money from. Are they influenced by foreign powers or money? Gone. Okay, let's try this one. You ever get that kind of feeling that you're just not wanted? Well guys, there you go. We knocked on their doors, nobody there, an old underwear shop, nice part of town. We've called them, nobody wants to talk to us. Nobody wants to talk to us on the street. We just wanted to give people a platform to give us their side of the story. But it seems they're very, very reticent to engage with us or anyone else when it comes to answering some questions that you guys might want answered. Something we noticed about the protests here in Belgrade in Serbia is the fact that there are a lot of young people here. Not just students from universities, but kids from high schools and their families, all getting involved, all out on the streets. So we interviewed one of the Serbian ministers in charge of family and demographics. Let's have a listen to what she had to say.
In regular proceedings, the biggest problem is the fact that a number of schools are on strike. The main issue is that the universities are blocked, and I have to explain the phenomenon of the plenum, which undermines all democratic principles because it involves a gathering of a small number of students. Plenums consist of 3 to 5% of students at the universities, no more than 5%. The remaining 95% of students have not been asked whether they agree with this. And that is the formula of the tyranny of the minority over the majority.
Now, of course, Serbia is far from being the only country under huge pressure from foreign influence groups. But as we said earlier, there's a glaring lack of EU and NATO support on display in Belgrade. And that's because both of those are extremely unpopular with the Serbian people. And that's on both sides of the political divide. The Serbs aren't too keen to man the barricades for Victoria Nuland and the globalist elites. And that's in stark contrast to what I've seen in another country under extreme pressure by foreign NGOs. And that's Georgia. Now, I was there last year investigating NGO operations, and what I saw was really quite shocking. Thousands of anti-Russian posters, NATO flags, British, American and EU flags were everywhere. I even saw handwritten posters which students were paid to write and leave deposited around the town in areas where protests were happening. But the most interesting part came when I tried to talk to some of the so-called protesters whose banner was featured on the BBC and CNN as a symbol of Georgian resistance to Russian interference. And it turns out that they weren't Georgians at all.
Do you speak English?
A little bit, yeah.
What group are you from? Are you
From Italy.
from Italy?
Italy.
Wow, okay.
Yes.
Are you Georgian, Italian, or?
No, we are an activist movement for human rights
Okay.
in Italy,
Wow.
and we were here for the election
Okay.
for saying
Georgia is not Russia. Okay. Why is it in English, the sign?
Huh?
Why have you written it in English?
Because it's international language. it's clear. Then.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't be able to read it if it was Italian because I'm Irish, so I wouldn't know. But I was interested, yeah. I suppose everybody speaks a bit of English, really. It's about the messaging, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and you came all the way from Italy to
to be here. Wow, that's incredible. Super.
We have a demonstration in Italy too.
Yeah, who do you demonstrate against in Italy?
In Italy for Georgia.
Oh, for Georgia.
Yes.
Okay.
Saturday.
Okay.
In Milan, in Rome, and Turin.
And do you think the election was fair?
Yeah.
Here in Georgia.
Yeah.
You think it was a fair election? You don't think there was any interference or any problems?
No.
You think there was?
Oh, yeah.
It was interfered with. Okay. And you think Russia was behind that? Mm-hmm. And this is where it gets really interesting. The people holding their English language sign outside of the Georgian parliament aren't just big-hearted Italians interested in democracy. That's not the case. They are high-level members of a small radical Italian political group, Silvia Manzi and Igor Boni. Now, they're part of the pro-Ukrainian, pro-European and pro-NATO party, the Italian Radicals, and they receive their funds from, guess where? George Soros. Of course, this isn't just about Serbia. It's about Georgia, it's about Slovakia, and it's also about Hungary. Any country who refuses to bend their knee to the globalist agenda is finding themselves in the crosshairs.
First of all, why we don't have in Serbia NATO flags or EU flags? They want to make that kind of mistake. They do it last year. There was some kind of this protest, Serbia against the violence, something like that. And there was openly opposition, led by opposition, with NATO and EU flags. And it's collapsed. Because most of the people in Serbia don't like NATO. We despise NATO. You know, when you to the ordinary Serb said something about NATO, he said, no, just don't speak me about it. You know, they criminals, they were criminals, they kill our children. I don't want to see their flag. European Union, almost the same. European Union is led by liars. Liars and people who, you know, we signed the Brussels Agreement with them 12 years ago. And nothing happened. Liars. That's it. So they won't repeat that kind of mistake. So they speak people what they want to hear. And that's it. Nothing more. Opposition in Serbia is very unpopular.
As we've said, it's not our job to get involved in internal Serbian politics. There's a government view, there's a protester's view, and this is about them being allowed to sort that out in Serbia, a sovereign Serbia. But one thing that really interested us was the fact that the EU was particularly unpopular, and that's across the divide. I spoke to Mario Zna, the most influential podcaster in Serbia, and he gave us a little glimpse into how Serbs view the European Union.
There is a big difference between Ireland and Serbia right now, and that's because Serbia is not a part of European Union. And as much as they are giving money to Serbian NGOs and other organizations for 20 years, 25 years since Slobodan Milosevic and 5th of October, they gave billions with USAID, with other foundations, other embassies, but European Union right now has like approval rate in Serbia around 20% tops.
So that brings us to the end of our first part of the War in the Shadows. It's taken a lot of effort, a lot of work to shine a light into those shadows to find out just how much effort and money and political influence is getting poured into countries to go essentially against the democratic will of the people. Like we say, it's not about what the argument is, it's about the ability of people to do things in a sovereign way under their own flags. We're not finished. We think there's lots more secrets to be uncovered. So stick with us for the next episode. Thanks for watching.